During the Cold War era, international relations were relatively stable. The two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, could maintain relative stability in their spheres of influence. With the end of the Cold War, borders between countries became more permeable, allowing for the movement of people, goods, and ideas. The easing of tensions between these two nuclear powers was seen as paving the way for a new era in international relations. With the onset of globalization in trade and commerce, not only did criminal activities intensify, but they also became an international phenomenon. Technological advancements, communications, and transportation further accelerated the growth of organized crime, turning it into a nightmare for law enforcement agencies in the 21st century. Alliances between criminal groups have made it very difficult for law enforcement to stop their activities or penetrate their operations. In the 1990s, transnational organized crime became a major concern of international security and attracted the attention of national and regional law enforcement agencies. Even now, this phenomenon threatens governments and affects the economies of developed and developing countries. Alliances. Transnational criminal organizations often operate as beneficial alliances for one or more governments, coordinating with other national and international groups. Sometimes these relationships arise out of necessity and common interests that assist in achieving the goals of both parties. Organized crime groups thrive in countries that lack a unified political structure, countries that have a weak existing government, or law enforcement agencies that are not trained or equipped and have weak border guards. In these countries, corruption, extortion, bribery, and the exploitation of the impoverished masses to amass wealth and improve lifestyles are common, all of which provide fertile ground for the success of organized crime. What is organized crime? A clear and concise definition of organized crime is vital to understanding this issue. Depending on specific laws of countries and jurisdictions, there are different definitions of organized crime. The general consensus among experts is that organized implies a consistent pattern or modus operandi that involves a conspiratorial collaboration that may take place over an extended period, involving multiple stakeholders, both governmental and non-governmental. Additionally, organized can reflect a group's capability to infiltrate government structures with the aim of undermining efforts to prevent their activities. Structures. There is no specific organizational structure that criminal groups adhere to. They operate within diverse organizational frameworks, many of which are highly complex and encompass numerous individuals and groups. Traditional criminal organizations, such as the Sicilian Mafia, function in hierarchical structures similar to legitimate businesses. Newer groups tend to operate in network-like structures. Government and business relations. Major criminal organizations have the skills to build and exploit their relationships with national and state agencies to accomplish their goals and execute their operations. Indeed, organized criminals cannot succeed without some level of political support. When their goals cannot be achieved through bribery, extortion, or corruption, they often resort to violence, thus threatening public order and endangering the coherence and authority of states. Organized crime groups infiltrate legitimate business organizations through bribery and coercion. They also establish shell companies to facilitate their illegal operations and conceal their activities. Objectives and alliances. Criminal groups resort to targeted violence to maintain their interests or to gain control over individuals or groups that threaten their operations. Many of their victims include members of political organizations or law enforcement agencies. As these groups operate internationally, these characteristics make it difficult to penetrate them. There is growing concern that organized criminal groups will become powerful and financially stable enough to weaken legitimate governments and, like the example of Mexico today, alter the relationships between governments and existing allies. Vital response. In the 21st century, where many transnational criminal groups and other non-state armed actors threaten governments, our response needs to be multifaceted, and governments need to collaborate in areas that impact their collective security. Organized crime is an area that requires concentrated and extensive internet.